How far will the global tech war go? Just days ago, China pulled a bold move by halting exports of gallium and germanium, two metals critical for everything from smartphones to military tech. But here's the real shocker. This isn't just a random policy. It's part of a broader struggle between global powers like the US and China, a struggle where your devices, jobs, and even national security are on the line. Let's start with the basics. Gallium and germanium are essential for semiconductors, solar panels, and radar systems. And guess what? China controls 90% of the world's gallium supply and over 93% of germanium production. That's not just dominance, it's near total control. In 2022 alone, the US imported $225 million worth of these metals, with nearly 80% coming from China. Now, with the export ban in place, prices for gallium have already spiked by 30% globally, and experts predict this is just the beginning. And here's the kicker. Demand for these metals isn't slowing. With the Biden administration pushing for a green energy transition and a stronger tech sector, the US is now scrambling to secure alternative supplies. But doing that, it's easier said than done. This move isn't isolated, it's part of China's broader dominance in the rare earth sector, where it controls nearly 70% of global mining and processes around 85% of rare earth materials used worldwide. These materials power electric vehicles, wind turbines, and advanced weaponry. Back in 2010, Beijing cut off rare earth exports to Japan during a territorial dispute, causing global panic. Fast forward to today, and we're seeing a similar playbook, this time aimed at the US and its allies. Even the Trump administration recognized this vulnerability, investing over $50 million into domestic mining projects in 2019. But the gap remains huge. Right now, the US imports nearly 80% of its rare earth needs, mostly from, you guessed it, China. This export ban is part of a broader tech war that's been escalating for years. Let's talk about semiconductors, arguably the most critical technology of our time. Globally, semiconductor production is dominated by Taiwan, which accounts for 60% of total output, followed by South Korea at 18%. China makes only about 10%, but its ambitions to catch up have been stifled by US export bans on advanced chip-making tools under both the Biden and Trump administrations. These restrictions aren't just economic, they're strategic. Without cutting-edge semiconductors, China risks falling behind in AI, quantum computing, and military tech. And now, by restricting gallium exports, Beijing is signaling it's willing to weaponize its own dominance in other parts of the supply chain. So what's the US doing to counter this? The Biden administration has allocated over $75 million to bolster domestic rare earth mining and refining. Meanwhile, Australia, which holds about 3.8% of the world's rare earth reserves, is ramping up mining efforts. New projects, like the Mount Weld mine, are positioning the country as a key player in the global rare earth supply chain, aiming to support allied nations and diversify supply sources. But there's a catch. Developing a new mine takes 7 to 10 years, and building refining capacity is even slower. In the short term, some companies are exploring recycling programs or partnerships in Africa and South America, but these efforts are far from solving the immediate crisis. Long term, the goal is clear: diversify the supply chain and reduce dependency on China. But with global demand for semiconductors expected to grow by 13% annually, the clock is ticking. This crisis is a wake-up call. Our tech-dependent world is more fragile than we'd like to admit. Whether it's the devices in our hands or the defense systems protecting our nations, the materials powering these innovations are often controlled by geopolitical rivals. So, what do you think? Should the US and its allies pour more resources into mining and refining to reduce dependency on China? Or is this just the price of globalization? Tell me in the comments and follow the news with us.